Fedora and Red Hat are silencing support of the Xorg fork known as X11 Libre, while at the same time, multiple other Linux distributions are voicing support for the fork. This is becoming a massive schism within the general open source world. And what's wild about this is the Fedora project is actually suspending and deleting and censoring because of people showing support for the fork of an open source project. How weird is that? How weird is it for an open source project to suspend people, to ban people, to delete people's comments because they are supporting an open source project? It's insanity. It's really, really bizarre. So I'm going to go through a whole bunch of this right now. I also want to mention that the developer of KiCad, which is a very prominent and popular piece of CAD software, has written a really detailed and extraordinarily lengthy article detailing why people probably should stick to X Windows, Xorg, X Libre, whatever you want, when using his software, because it works better for the type of software he has, and Wayland just doesn't have the features that his software needs. And it just kind of underscores the fact that there's these big powers within the world of open source, such as Red Hat and various others, that are trying to push a whole lot of users to use something they don't want to use. And when people reject that and say, no, I'm just going to use the software I want to use, the stuff that works for me, the stuff that I've been using for the last 20 years, they get silenced and censored. It's crazy. Okay, so Kevin Koffler, who is a prominent Fedora contributor, been around for a long time, lots and lots of packages, has officially proposed replacing Xorg with the newly announced X11 Libre within Fedora Linux. And I want to make sure that everyone understands the context here. Fedora Linux is funded and managed by Red Hat, who recently banned the Xorg fork, the X11 Libre developer, from Xorg and Free Desktop, specifically because he was working on a fork and they did not want people to continue working on that software. But Kevin Koffler went ahead and made an official proposal. Now, this is how things within Fedora work. Fedora Linux is a very bureaucratic system. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. It's just how they work, right? They have a documented system where if you want to make specific changes to Fedora Linux, you submit a proposal, a proposed change, and you got to document the heck out of it. And it goes to committee and it gets a review process and on and on and on and on, right? Well, this guy put forward a simple change request for Fedora. And that was, quote, replace the Xorg X11X server with the X11 Libre server, an actively maintained fork. He goes on to say, a long time has passed since the last major release of the Xorg X11 server. Even bug fix releases have become rare. Therefore, this change proposes replacing the nearly unmaintained upstream with a maintained fork, the X Libre server. There is no intent at this time to replace the X Wayland implementation, only the standalone X server and its sub packages. Okay, fairly straightforward. Kevin Koffler proposed this and put it out there. Now, one thing that was funny, let's see if I've got this here, is here it is. I do have the screenshot here, is in the documentation sections. The documentation section for this change proposal, roughly, I don't know, half of the documentation section is about me. I'm just going to read this here. For now, there is the upstream README file for the documentation. Unfortunately, half of it consists of political statements, which are upstream's views and upstream's only. See the disclaimer section and rants. I've got a little thing over this. There we go. There is also this post to the social network X, formerly Twitter, by the tech journalist Lunduke, which has a bit more technical information. You're right. For example, about the new X namespaces, extensions, but unfortunately, it's also mixed with politics as usual for Lunduke. And the choice of the medium is arguably also a political statement. So if I post things to X, that's a political statement? Okay. There too, any political opinion is Lunduke's or Upstream's only. I like that. That they've got to, even just proposing these changes in there, you've got to make a statement to Fedora. Be like, don't ban me just because I'm linking to something that's Lunduke, because Lunduke does the coverage and all this stuff. I feel like I've got to link to it, but don't link to me on it. We don't like Lunduke. Please don't ban me. It's just like, oh, okay. Someone pointed this out, and just a total side note, I just thought this was funny. In light of all the discussions, total side note, of all the discussions around dispelling the myth of Jews and DEI and big tech and everything, someone saw that roughly half of the documentation section for this change request in Fedora was about me, and someone's like, aha, proof that Jews are actually behind all the tech, which I thought was pretty funny. Moving on. Then a discussion erupted. So over on the Fedora forum, a discussion started around this proposed change to move from Xorg to X11 Libre, right? To move from an unmaintained let's kill it package to a maintained package. One of the Fedora proven packagers, that's a title, has declared that the Xorg fork is, quote, crapware, and argues that X11 Libre should not be used because it lacks support from Free Desktop, which is Red Hat controlled, or Upstream, the Xorg, which is also or Fedora, all of which is all Red Hat controlled. So that was Lee Scott. Switching from Xorg to X11 Libre is pure insanity. I have no objection to the I have no objection to the X11 Libre stack being packaged for Fedora, but was insanity. I shouldn't make it default. And that began a back and forth. People started talking about it and going back and forth with Lee Scott about it. And Lee Scott, one of the proven packagers, declared, what about my freedom to continue to use Xorg and not have it replaced with crapware from a single dev with a massive chip on his shoulder? On and on and on. Now, to Fedora's credit, Jeff Spoletta, a member of the Fedora Council, posted this. We haven't reached the point in the process, because again, bureaucratic, lots of process, where the proposed change proposal is formally open for discussion. There are a series of steps taken by the Fedora program manager leading up to the formal discussion period. The rest I will leave for the formal discussion process. Blah, 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 blah. And one of the big objections, of course, to X11 Libre being used within Fedora primarily seems to be around that it doesn't kind of acquiesce to the power of Red Hat, right? So, you can't use it because governance and upstream trust is an issue. The author had an expulsion from freedesktop.org, and that raises serious concerns about project governance. Now, that, of course, freedesktop.org is controlled by a code of conduct committee that is really run by Red Hat. It really is. If you look into whom does what and who makes all the moves, it all comes from Red Hat employees, usually from redhat.com email addresses, right? It also raises concerns about codes of conduct and such. So it becomes a very political thing very quickly. The other main issue that gets brought up, the number 2 issue here, is the lack of broad community or vendor backing. This fork does not have consensus support from upstream contributors. Okay. Oh, okay. Specifically calling out Wayland support. So what he's saying here is you can't include a fork of Xorg because the developers of a competing project known as Wayland don't give their blessing of it. That's insane. That's like a Ubuntu saying, oh man, shoot, we'd love to ship GNOME as our desktop environment, but we just don't have the support of KDE yet. Like, it doesn't make any sense at all. It's ridiculous and stupid. It's ridiculous, but also stupid. Those are important things to note there. Now, then it goes out of control from there, as if on cue, because you can all sense this coming. There were people, one user in particular, on the Fedora forum suggesting that this was a good idea. Yeah, let's get rid of, let's stop supporting inside Fedora Xorg because the Xorg developers had abandoned it, right? So they don't want it to continue anymore. And let's move to a supported, maintained fork. I mean, whatever you think of the people doing the maintenance, if we're going to keep an X Windows server around, an X11 implementation, it might as well be a maintained one, right? But of course, whammo, ban. Well, suspension. When I first posted about this, I thought it was that the user had their account deleted, but it turns out it was just a temporary suspension and the deletion of a whole bunch of their statements. Comments that are supporting and advocating for the fork were all just deleted. So if you go to the thread, which I link to in a bunch of places, including over on X, if you go to that thread, over on the Fedora forum, which exists for the moment anyway, a whole slew of messages are just gone. I've been screenshotting things as I can, but the Fedora people are boom, 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 clicking and deleting as fast as they can. Now, the author of the Fedora change proposal, make sure I get his name right, Kevin Koffler, right? So that's the guy, right? Looking at the right people. Yeah, Kevin Koffler. He's chimed in. He's chimed in on that thread with his individual thoughts. And I'm going to read a few of them to you now because I found the whole thing rather bizarre. Not that I necessarily found Kevin Koffler's statements bizarre. I just found the whole thing bizarre. So I'm gonna read this here. Quote. So this is the change owner writing. First of all, the change is a proposal that has still not even been formally announced. I have in fact been waiting for more than a week for that now. As per the change process, the discussion is supposed to start at the point where the proposal is officially announced, and then the Fedora something council is supposed to vote for or against the change based on the community feedback. My intent is to package this myself, though I would welcome any co-maintainers if and only if the change is approved. And then someone else chimed in, maybe you should stop reading Flamebait from Lunduke. The latest Xorg release was yesterday. And that is true. Xorg just did a release a day ago. And it's kind of hilarious, but I want to read what this guy from the Fedora project said about that release because it's true. Quote, as you can see, that is version 21.1.17, a bug fix / security release from the 4-year-old 21.1 branch, not a real new release, as in a new branch from the current master. The reason it was released at all is obvious: to fix security vulnerabilities that were recently made public. Multiple security issues in the Xorg X server and X Wayland were disclosed. New versions were released. By the way, it looks like they missed one and are going to release another update. So they're only reapplying stuff for 4-year-old releases, and there's literally thousands of releases that they're ignoring within Xorg because they don't want a new release. They've literally said they will not have a new release. They do not want one, and they don't even like the fact that they're doing any security releases, and they're doing them really late. I digress. But he continues. To my knowledge, this is what he says. Again, this is a Fedora maintainer. There is no intent at Xorg to release anything other than security fixes and possibly selected bug fixes. As for Lunduke in general, here we go. I agree that he is not a reliable source, other than the fact that they found me to be the primary source of reliable information, so much so on this topic that they literally link to me in the documentation and then apologize for it because of how gosh darn accurate it is. They continue. However, the facts are pretty clear. Enrico, the developer of this Xorg fork, started a fork of Xorg on the same infrastructure because he was unhappy with stalled merge requests. He got banned from Free Desktop and Xorg, and is actually the same organization, for alleged code of conduct violations, which, as usual, the Code of Conduct Committee is not willing to discuss in public. This is the standard procedure for code of conduct issues. And then he moved his fork to GitHub, denouncing, this is all, by the way, not my statements. This is the statements of someone from the Fedora project, actively developing the Fedora project, who was telling everyone that you don't listen to Lunduke. I'm really sorry I even mentioned Lunduke's name, right? So this is them talking here. Moved his fork to GitHub, denounced what he feels is censorship, and yes, including conspiracy theories and political statements that I, like most of us here, have a problem with. Now has witnessed even his previously accepted commits being mass reverted from Xorg. I have not read any of the statements about them from Enrico so far. All this is verifiable from public GitLab commit history and or issue comments and from various media, not just Lunduke. So anyway, so he's coming out and talking about all this. And one has to wonder, how long until this guy, what was his name again? Kevin Koffler, before he gets banned or suspended or reprimanded in some way from Fedora and the Red Hat masters, right? I mean, he did bow down and grovel and say, please forgive me, master, for saying something and linking up to Lunduke. I'm sorry for saying his name. I said his name 3 times, so he'll probably appear like Bloody Mary or Beetlejuice or something. But please forgive me. So maybe Fedora will take mercy on him. It's funny to me that when you go in, when I delve into these worlds, how often people have to do an almost religious type groveling when mentioning my coverage. Like, I'm so sorry I had to mention Lunduke. Oh, forgive me, my lord, I mentioned the Lunduke. Oh, I linked to Lunduke. There's no information on this topic anywhere but Lunduke, so I have to link to him. I hope you forgive me. Do not ban me, sir. Don't beat me. It's crazy. So we'll see what happens with that as it goes. Now, the reasons that a lot of people are promoting continuing the development of the X11 server here in the form of the X11 Libre project is really a technical and practical one. There's a lot of political stuff involved here. There's a lot of emotional things. There's a lot of idealistic pro open source things that are happening to encourage people to get on board with X11 Libre. But really the core of it is practical. The KiCad developer, and KiCad is a computer-aided drafting, a CAD piece of software that has been around for a long time. It is very widely used, and it is a very critical piece of software for open source desktops. Now, the developer of it has come out and written a huge article over at KiCad.org talking about why people still need to use an X11 server, an X Windows server, instead of using a Wayland-based desktop for KiCad. I'm just going to read a couple of tidbits here, just real quickly. Current status for using KiCad with Wayland is functional but degraded. KiCad does run on Wayland systems, but with significant limitations and known issues that substantially degrade the user experience. While you can design PC boards using KiCad on Wayland, you will encounter numerous problems that we cannot fix at the application level. The following problems are known issues in Wayland protocols or their implementation. then he goes on to list a ton of them in detail, and you can read them all over on the blog post here. He goes on to say, these problems exist because Wayland's design omits basic functionality that desktop applications for X11, Windows, and Mac OS have relied on for decades. Things like being able to position windows or warp the mouse cursor. This functionality was omitted by design, not oversight. The fragmentation doesn't help either. GNOME interprets protocols one way, KDE another way, and smaller compositors yet another way. As application developers, we can't depend on consistent implementation by various Wayland protocols and experiential extensions. Linux is already a small section of the KiCad user base. Further fragmentation by window managers creates an unusual support burden. Most frustrating is that we can't fix these problems ourselves. So, I mean, it's very clear that a lot of people, and that's not the only piece of software out there along those lines. There's a ton of software that's impacted like this. So people need an X11 server. Luckily, and I just want to point this out to you so you guys know what to expect. The X11 Libre project has not made their first official public release yet. It's ongoing. They've got repositories going. They're working towards it. And last I checked, I think it's just a couple of days away. But regardless of when it comes out, in a couple of days, couple of weeks, whatever, there are a couple of Linux distributions that are already working from the testing branch of X11 Libre to work on packaging it for their distributions, including OpenMandriva, Artix, and Devuan. So who knows what Fedora will choose to do? My guess is they won't do it because Red Hat really wants to kill Xorg just entirely, whether it's a fork or not. But we are seeing a lot of projects, jump on board. I want to read a little something here from the Devuan team, right? Devuan is fully on board with this. Let me pull up their post here. Welcome X Libre, the Devuan team says. This fork was necessary since, they're quoting here from the X Libre documentation. This fork was necessary since toxic elements within Xorg projects, moles from big tech, are boycotting any substantial work on Xorg in order to destroy the project to eliminate competition of their own products. Classic, embrace, extend, extinguish. And then I want to read the quote from Devuan about their support. X Libre shows once again what is happening to the GNU/Linux community and why forks are made necessary by the corporate land grab of community developments. My dog is just like at my feet and demanding that she go outside. You can wait just like 2 minutes. I swear, 2 minutes and we go outside. And they just, the corporate land grab of community developments, and they just removed live systemd dev dependencies. We will support this effort as much as possible. So that's Devuan. We will support X Libre as much as possible. So we're already seeing numerous Linux distributions across the board saying, yeah, we're jumping on board with this. We're not seeing Fedora, OpenSUSE, Ubuntu, a couple of the really big ones, but we're seeing sizable Linux distributions, top 10, top 15 Linux distros that are definitely jumping on board, and that's pretty exciting to see. Let's see, I wanted to mention one or two other things. I'm noticing a lot of excitement. People are creating artwork about X Libre and talking about X Libre and getting excited about X Libre, and that is awesome. I love seeing that sort of thing. I love that there is a renewed level of excitement in a piece of software that's been around as a staple, a bedrock boring utilitarian staple of no dog intended in this of the open source and Unixy world for so many years. I mean, X Windows has been around for a long time. I mean, it's been rocking since the 80s in one way or another. And Xorg really has been around, if you trace its roots back, since about 1991 was the first, open source implementation of something that eventually became Xorg. And it's become such a core standard that to see people excited about it, to see people really taking it back and saying, you know what? I know Red Hat, you want to kill it, but we don't want it dead. We want to keep it rocking. So cope. I love that. I love that. That's exciting to me. I also want to say that we're going to be seeing an increase in bannings with code of conduct violations that are never explained. We saw them here today from the Fedora project. In fact, I've specifically, I should talk about this one again recently, sometime soon. But if you go look back a couple of months ago, I did a test. Specific people within the Fedora project began saying truly heinous things about me. I mean, calling me a Nazi and just crazy things that were off the charts, things that were extreme, undeniable code of conduct violations according to the Fedora project code of conduct. And those were done by Fedora project members. It was like members of their marketing team and all sorts of stuff. I reported those issues because I wanted to see within Fedora if they would fairly apply their code of conduct even to people whose politics they disagreed with, right? Because that's really the core question that gets brought up a great deal is, oh, we have a code of conduct and we fairly apply it and all those sorts of things. Well, it turns out that Fedora, they took, I believe it was 6 months, 8 months, something like that, to even respond to me over half a year of being literally harassed and slandered and libeled by their own team members. And they didn't respond to me for over half a year. And when they did nothing. They did not take action of any kind. Those people are still a key part of the Fedora project, which means that the Fedora project, like so many open source projects, including the ones that are funded and come out of Red Hat, are weaponizing and using codes of conduct in order to silence people they don't like and promote people they do. It's not about how people conduct themselves. It's not about protecting people. It's not about any of that, right? That's proven at this point. So I put up a little picture because I think we're going to see a moment very soon where it's going to be assumed if you remove Xorg, if you remove GNOME, or any other of a variety of extremely political projects from your system, and you make a public statement about it, that will be considered a code of conduct violation, and you will be reported, suspended, banned, censored, etc. from all of these major projects. I think we're already seeing it. We see people talking about supporting X11 Libre, suspended. Yeah. I think they're going to say, oh, it's a dog whistle. You're alt-right Nazi fascist dog whistling when you say something like, gosh, I don't want to install GNOME anymore. Or gosh, I'm gonna take Xorg off my system. I just don't like how they handle things. Oh, you're a fascist, and then they're gonna call that a code of conduct violation. I think that's really the direction we're heading with all of this. And but no, that's not true. It is not the direction we're heading. It's already where we are and where we have been. It's just gonna keep getting worse and more fragmented. But the great part, once again, and I'm going to bring this list up here. I've got the list memorized. I don't need the list. Is we've got Linux distributions that are already hopping on board. So if you want to run OpenMandriva or Devuan or multiple other Linux distributions with freedom-loving software, from the technical perspective and the less technical perspective, those options are available. And I think that's pretty amazing. That gives me a lot of faith in the future. But the whole world of Linux is just being split into two different camps right now. The corporate camp, which uses codes of conduct to silence anyone who's centrist or right of center, or just doesn't want to go along with whatever the corporate idea is of destroying projects. And then everyone else, the people who like open source, the people who like free software, the people who like transparency in projects, the people who are centrist or right-leaning or are left-leaning, but just not crazy. All the rest of us are going to be over here having some fun. And that's pretty cool. Thank you to the Lunduke Journal subscribers. Go to lunduke.com for all the links and the places to listen and watch and all that good stuff and support the Lunduke Journal. Really, I couldn't do it without you. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nerds and nerdettes across the inner tubes, I do declare, end broadcast.